Looking back now, I can't help but wonder if we should have noticed the warning signs sooner. What started as a perfect beach vacation with my 3 best friends turned into something that still makes my skin crawl when I think about it. The 4 of us, myself, Mike, Chris, and Tom, had rented this beachfront house in a quiet part of the Florida coast. The drive down was cramped, but filled with excitement and stupid jokes. None of us could have predicted how quickly that carefree atmosphere would change. The house sat on this secluded stretch of road with the bay in front, the beach literally in the backyard. As we unloaded our bags, I remember thinking how eerily quiet it was, not a single car passed by. Perfect privacy, I thought at the time. Now that same thought makes me shudder. The house itself was modest but clean, with this overwhelming beach-themed decor that tried a bit too hard: seashell paintings, rope decorations, even a decorative surfboard behind the TV. But the view. God, the view was worth every penny. The back deck led straight down to the sand, just 2 steps between you and the ocean. I managed to snag one of the bedrooms with an ocean view. Score, I thought. I can fall asleep to the sound of waves. If only I'd known those waves would mask other, more sinister sounds later that night. The day started perfectly normal. We hit the beach, splashed in the water, played football, typical guy stuff. The only other people we saw were this older couple way down the beach, but I didn't think much of it at the time. Should I have? That question still haunts me. After dinner and bar hopping in town, we came back buzzed and decided to play some night football on the beach. That's when things started getting weird. I was chasing after a missed catch when I spotted someone standing waist deep in the ocean. My heart skipped a beat. Who goes swimming at midnight? Guys, I called out, trying to keep my voice steady. You see that person out there? They did. He tried to rationalize it, probably just a local enjoying a midnight swim, right? But something about it felt off. My gut was screaming that this wasn't normal, but pushed the feeling down. Later, while my hikers had gone to bed, John and I were having beers on the deck when I noticed a figure standing on the beach facing us. Completely still. Just watching. My throat went dry. Don't panic, I told myself. There has to be a logical explanation. Is everything okay? I called out, immediately regretting drawing attention to ourselves. The figure didn't move, didn't respond, just kept staring. That's when the real fear started creeping in. The kind that makes your stomach turn to ice and your hands shake. We retreated inside, trying to laugh it off, but I couldn't shake the feeling that we'd made a terrible mistake renting this isolated house. In my bedroom, I made the mistake of looking out the window one last time. There they were standing right in front of our deck, looking up at my window. My blood turned to ice. They're watching me. They know exactly where I am. The figure was definitely male, broader shouldered than before. The same person? Had there been more than one all along? The knocking on my window nearly made my heart stop. 2 gentle taps, like someone testing the glass. Don't look. Don't look. Don't look, I kept repeating to myself, frozen in terror. More knocks. Soft, almost playful, like they were enjoying my fear. I bolted from the room, screaming for everyone to wake up. When we finally worked up the courage to check outside, they were gone. Like ghosts, but the feeling of being watched lingered. The next day, what the neighbor told us made everything worse. They'd had their own late-night visitor the week before, someone who just kept knocking, refusing to identify themselves. How long had these people been stalking this beach? How many other renters had they terrorized? We finished our trip, but none of us slept well. Every sound made us jump. Every shadow seemed to hide a figure. To this day, I can't look at beach house rental listings without remembering that night. Sometimes in my nightmares, I lift those blinds when I hear the knocking, but I always wake up before I see what's on the other side. Maybe that's for the best, because whatever or whoever was out there that night, they're still out there, still watching, still waiting for the next group of unsuspecting renters to arrive at that quiet stretch of beach. I just pray they never find out what's on the other side of that window. My cousin Jake and I used to go camping quite frequently in our early 20s around various forests in Montana. This particular incident occurred when I was 22 and he was 23 at the Blackwood National Forest. While I was a novice camper, Jake was an experienced Eagle Scout who had been there multiple times before. We chose to go camping midweek to avoid the weekend crowds. Both our work schedules allowed for these off-peak adventures, which typically meant having entire sections of the forest to ourselves. Jake always took the lead on these trips. Being an Eagle Scout meant he knew what he was doing. After parking near a designated picnic area, we hiked about 15 minutes into the dense forest before finding an ideal clearing. It was perfect for our setup to tents, a portable stove, and a campfire ring. Jake, being the expert, had his tent pitched in minutes while I struggled with mine for nearly half an hour. Little did I know this would be my last wilderness camping trip. As dusk approached, we had a roaring fire going and Jake was grilling up his signature camping feast, premium steaks and gourmet burgers. That was another thing about Jake, he never skimped on camping cuisine. We had bear spray ready, though Jake always said other humans were more dangerous than any wildlife. The evening started perfectly. We cracked open some beers, played classic rock on our portable speaker, and enjoyed the incredible wilderness vibes. Few things compare to sharing drinks and stories with family around a campfire in the middle of nowhere. As darkness fell, we switched to playing UNO on our collapsible card table. That's when we heard it. I paused the music, and the sound became unmistakable, someone humming, accompanied by footsteps in the pitch-black forest beyond our campsite. Jake tensely urged me to grab the flashlight, but by the time I found it, the sounds had faded into the darkness. "Should we be worried?" I whispered. "Nobody should be this deep in the woods at night," Jake replied, his usual confidence noticeably shaken. Especially not someone walking past an active campsite while humming. We tried returning to our card game with the music volume greatly reduced. Then suddenly a large branch landed in the middle of our campsite. This wasn't a natural fall, someone had thrown it at us. "Whoever's out there fucking with us, get lost," Jake shouted into the darkness. We heard footsteps retreating into the forest. I suggested packing up and moving elsewhere, but Jake vetoed the idea, saying it was too dangerous to navigate the forest at night. We had our bear spray for protection, and he advised keeping it close while sleeping. Throughout the evening, we kept hearing unnatural sounds, branches breaking in ways that no animal would cause. Someone was out there. Maybe multiple people. We decided to take turns keeping watch, with Jake taking the first shift while reading his book. I crawled into my sleeping bag and eventually drifted off. When I woke up, I was in that hazy state between sleep and consciousness. That's when I saw it ahead, peering into my tent. In the darkness, it looked like Jake. "Jake?" I mumbled groggily. I turned for watch. The head stayed there, silent and still. Then suddenly the tent zipper closed rapidly and the figure disappeared. It took a moment for clarity to hit me. I unzipped my tent and looked outside. The fire was dead, and Jake was nowhere in sight. With growing dread, I checked his tent and found him sound asleep. My blood ran cold as the realization hit me. I shook Jake awake, telling him someone was in our campsite. He grabbed his bear spray and insisted I sleep in his tent for safety. When I went to grab my sleeping bag, that haunting humming started again outside. We spent the rest of the night in Jake's tent, bear spray at the ready, taking turns keeping watch. As soon as dawn broke, we packed up and got out of there. While we could have camped elsewhere, the experience had thoroughly unsettled us both. 6 years have passed since that night. Jake still occasionally suggests camping trips, but I always decline. The image of that silent face peering into my tent in the darkness haunts me to this day. Sometimes I wonder who was out there stalking our campsite and what their intentions were. But mostly, I'm just grateful we made it out safely. That experience taught me one thing: Jake was right. In the wilderness, it's not the wildlife you need to fear. It's other people. Looking back at what happened that night when I was 9, I sometimes wonder if my childhood instincts saved my life. You know how they say kids can sense danger better than adults sometimes? Well, I believe it now. I was home alone, something that didn't happen often. My mom had gone out for groceries with my little sister, and I was upstairs in my room playing Metroid Prime on my GameCube. I remember that detail so clearly. Funny how your mind holds on to these little things from traumatic moments. I was just a kid playing video games. Everything was normal, until it wasn't. The house phone's ring pierced through the game music. Mom always insisted I answer the phone when home alone. It could be her calling. "Be responsible," she'd say. So I rushed downstairs, my sock-covered feet sliding a bit on the hardwood floors. The caller ID showed Mom's cell number. "Sweetie, can you come outside and help with the groceries?" Something in my stomach tightened. That voice. Something's wrong with that voice. "Mom?" I remember how small my own voice sounded. "Yes," the voice replied. "But it's not right. Mom doesn't sound like that. Mom never sounds like that." Even at 9 years old, you know your mother's voice like you know your own heartbeat. "Why do you sound like that?" My hand was trembling on the receiver. Like what, sweetie? I hung up. Sweetie. Mom never called me that. Not twice in one conversation. Never like that. The phone rang again. Same number. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. Don't answer it. Don't answer it. I let it ring. When it rang a third time, it was a different number. Something made me pick up, maybe that childhood curiosity that adults always warn you about. Hey James, a man's voice said, sending chills down my spine. I know this is going to sound weird, but it's your dad. I'm outside. Dad? But Dad died when I was 3. What? It was all I could manage to whisper. I'm outside. I have a lot to explain. I slammed the phone down. This isn't happening. This can't be happening. My dad was dead. I had no memories of it, just pictures and photo albums that Mom would cry over sometimes. The phone kept ringing. Over and over. They have Mom's phone. They know where we live. They know my name. Then came the knocking. Oh God, they're here. They're actually here. I peered around the kitchen wall, my whole body shaking. Through the front door window, I could see a shadow. A man's voice, muffled but clear enough. It's your dad. The doorbell rang. And the sound of someone trying the handle. They're trying to get in. They're trying to get in. I did what no 9-year-old should ever have to do. I called 911. My hands were shaking so bad I almost dropped the phone. The operator's voice was calm, telling me to hide in a room with a lock until police arrived. Stay quiet. Stay hidden. Help is coming. I chose the downstairs bathroom, turning off the lights and curling up in the corner. Please hurry. Please hurry. I could hear them at the windows now, trying each one. Thank God Mom always checks the locks. The sounds of them testing every possible entry point seemed to go on forever. What if they get in? What if they find me? I kept thinking about Mom and my little sister, praying they wouldn't come home while these people were still here. When the 911 operator finally told me the police were at the front door, I nearly cried with relief. Only then did I dare to hang up the phone. Later, we figured out what happened. Someone had stolen Mom's phone, an old Nokia flip phone with our family photo as a background. A photo that showed a single mom with 2 young kids. They saw us. They targeted us. They had my name, our address, our home phone number. Everything they needed to try to lure a child out of a safe home. Mom never left me alone at night after that, not until I was much older. But even now, 20 years later, I still check the caller ID before answering any phone. And when I hear knocking at night, part of me is still that terrified 9-year-old hiding in a dark bathroom, praying that all the windows are locked. Because sometimes the monsters aren't under your bed or in your closet. Sometimes they're outside your door, pretending to be someone you trust. And sometimes the only thing standing between you and them is your ability to trust that little voice inside that says something isn't right. The scariest part? I never found out who they were or why they chose us. They destroyed Mom's phone after their failed attempt, vanishing like shadows in the night. But sometimes I wonder, how many other houses did they try? How many other kids might not have been so lucky? And most chilling of all, are they still out there stealing phones, looking for their next target?